The old ship groaned as it moved through space, its metal hull creaking with every small adjustment. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the U.S. Tenacity, watching the stars through a viewport that had seen better days. The glass was slightly scratched, giving the endless space beyond a somewhat cloudy appearance. He wouldn't have his ship any other way. "Captain, we're receiving another message from the Galactic Council," said Tom Rogers, the communications officer. His console, like everything else on the bridge, looked outdated compared to newer ships. "They want to know why we're running 20 minutes behind schedule." Walker sighed and straightened his worn uniform. "Tell them what we always tell them, Tom. The Tenacity moves at her own pace." The bridge crew shared knowing smiles. They had heard all the jokes about their ship. The Tenacity was the oldest vessel still operating in the United Earth Fleet, and it showed. While other ships gleamed with polished metal and glowing force fields, the Tenacity looked like something from an old space movie. Patches covered patches, and some corridors still used manual doors instead of automatic ones. In the engine room, Dr. Rose Thompson worked on her secret project. The ship's chief engineer had spent 3 years developing something that could change everything about space travel. Her workspace was cramped, filled with old tools and new equations. The other engineers called her crazy, but she didn't mind. They didn't understand that sometimes the best ideas came from working with old technology. "Doc, the primary cooling system is acting up again," said Pete, her assistant. He was young and always worried about everything breaking down. "Should we switch to the backup?" "Let it run," Rose said, not looking up from her calculations. "The primary works better when it's a little hot. This old girl knows what she's doing." She patted the engine housing like someone would pet a faithful dog. The Tenacity continued its slow journey toward the Galactic Council station. The massive structure came into view, a perfect ring of silver and light that served as the meeting place for all spacefaring races. Newer human ships were already docked there, their smooth hulls making the Tenacity look even more out of place. "Look at that ugly thing," came an alien voice over an open channel that someone had forgotten to close. The humans still let that ancient vessel fly. Walker felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face neutral. His crew didn't need to see him angry. They heard these comments all the time. The docking procedure took longer than it should have. The Tenacity's computer system wasn't fully compatible with the station's modern protocols. While they waited, 3 sleek alien ships glided past them, their engines completely silent. Finally, they were aboard the station. Walker led his senior staff through the pristine corridors toward the main council chamber. Other delegates, both human and alien, gave them looks that mixed pity with amusement. The crew of the Tenacity walked with their heads high, their worn uniforms standing out against the perfectly pressed outfits around them. "Captain Walker," said first speaker Bright Crystal, the alien leader of the council session, "we are surprised to see the Tenacity still in service." The translator made the words polite, but everyone could hear the real meaning. "The Tenacity has never failed to complete a mission," Walker replied, standing straight. "She's carried out more successful diplomatic runs than any other ship in our fleet." "Yes, we have the records," said another council member, this one a tall being with blue-tinted skin. "Though perhaps it's time your people considered retiring such historical artifacts." Rose Thompson stepped forward before Walker could respond. "Our ship might not look impressive, but she's got something none of your vessels have." The aliens turned to her with expressions of doubt. "She's got room for innovation." A ripple of laughter went through the chamber. The blue-skinned alien spoke again. "Innovation. In that primitive construct, your engine system barely achieves standard faster than light travel." "That's where you're wrong," Rose said, her eyes bright with conviction. "The Tenacity's age is exactly what makes her perfect for testing new ideas. When everything's too new, too perfect, there's no room for thinking differently." The laughter grew louder. Walker watched as Rose's face reddened, but she didn't back down. He knew about her project, had given her permission to use ship resources for it. even though he didn't fully understand the physics involved. "Perhaps," said Bright Crystal, trying to be diplomatic, "but surely your government could provide better resources for research. That ship is held together by, what is your human phrase? Tape and wire." "Duct tape and baling wire," Walker corrected, letting a small smile show. "And you'd be surprised how well they work." The meeting continued, with the council discussing trade routes and diplomatic protocols. The Tenacity's crew sat through it all, enduring the occasional glance and whispered comment. Walker noticed Rose taking notes on her tablet, probably working on her project even now. When they finally returned to their ship, the crew felt the familiar comfort of the old vessel wrap around them. The scratched floors and flickering lights were home. In the engine room, Rose immediately went back to work, her determination stronger than ever. "They don't understand," she told Walker when he came to check on her. "All their advanced technology, all their perfect systems, and they can't see the potential in something a little rough around the edges." Walker looked at the complex diagrams on her screen. "Will it work?" he asked, not for the first time. Rose smiled, the same smile she always gave him when he asked that question. "It'll work. The math is solid. We just need the right moment to test it." She turned back to her work, surrounded by the gentle hum of engines that had been running longer than she'd been alive. The Tenacity pulled away from the station less gracefully than it had arrived, if that was possible. A few council members watched from the observation deck, shaking their heads at the old ship's departure. "Hard to believe they were once considered a promising species," one alien said to another. "They still show potential in some areas," Bright Crystal replied, watching the ship disappear into the darkness of space. "But that vessel, it's a reminder of how far they still have to go." Back on the bridge, Walker settled into his captain's chair, feeling the familiar wear in the cushions. "Plot a course for home, Andy," he told his navigator. "Course plotted, sir," Andy replied, his hands moving over the controls that still used physical buttons instead of holographic interfaces, though the engine's running a bit hot. Walker pressed the comm button on his chair. "Rose, how are we looking down there?" "Everything's perfect, Captain," came her reply, accompanied by the sound of tools clanking. "She's not hot, she's eager. There's a difference." The crew chuckled, used to their engineer's odd way of talking about the ship. The Tenacity moved steadily through space, her old engines pushing her forward, while carrying something none of the aliens suspected: the potential for a discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about space travel. As they left the council station behind, Walker looked at the small crew photo stuck to his console with actual adhesive tape. It showed them all standing proud in front of their ship, smiling despite the visible patches and wear. He wouldn't trade this ship or this crew for all the advanced technology in the galaxy. Little did the Galactic Council know, they would soon learn why the oldest human ship in service was also the most important one in the fleet. The emergency signal woke Walker from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his quarters as Tom's voice came through the speaker. "Captain to the bridge. Urgent priority message from Fleet Command." Walker was dressed and moving through the corridors of the Tenacity in less than 2 minutes. The old ship's emergency lighting system cast strange shadows on the walls, some bulbs flickering more than others. He passed crew members rushing to their stations, all of them looking worried. On the bridge, the main screen showed a sight that made Walker's stomach turn. A massive tear in space itself hung between 3 populated systems, its edges pulsing with strange energy that the sensors couldn't properly read. "Report," Walker said, dropping into his captain's chair. Tom turned from his communication station. "The anomaly appeared 6 hours ago, sir. It's growing. Fleet Command has ordered all ships in range to respond. 3 systems are in danger. Total population nearly 15 billion. Walker studied the readings. The tear was unlike anything he'd seen in 20 years of spaceflight. "How long until we reach it at top speed?" 4 hours, Andy said from the navigation console, "though engineering says we shouldn't push the engines that hard for that long." Walker hit the ship-wide comm. "Rose, I need everything you can give me from the engines. "We've got an emergency." There was a pause before Rose's voice came back, sounding distracted. "Captain, you need to come down to engineering. There's something you should see." When Walker reached the engine room, he found Rose surrounded by holographic displays showing complex equations. Her usual workspace had expanded to take over half the room, with cables and testing equipment scattered everywhere. "Look at these readings from the anomaly," she said without looking up. "The energy signature matches some of my theoretical calculations, the ones everyone said were impossible." Walker moved closer to look at the displays, though the math was beyond him. "What are you saying?" "My drive system," Rose said, finally looking at him with intense eyes. "The one I've been working on. It's not just about moving through space anymore. It's about moving with space, and that tear out there. It's doing something similar, just wrong. Dangerous. Can we use your drive to help?" Rose ran her hands through her messy hair. "Maybe, but it would mean installing untested modifications to our main engines. If I'm wrong about any of my calculations," she didn't need to finish the sentence. Before Walker could respond, the ship's comm system crackled. "Captain," Tom's voice came through. "Multiple alien vessels are arriving at the anomaly site. They're requesting all ships increase speed." Over the next 3 hours, the Tenacity pushed its old engines to their limit. The ship shuddered and groaned, but it held together. Through the main viewport, they could see the lights of other ships rushing toward the same destination, most of them passing the Tenacity easily. When they finally arrived, the scene was chaos. The spatial tear had grown even larger, its edges now crackling with visible energy. Dozens of ships from various species formed a perimeter around it, their more advanced engines glowing as they tried to contain the damage. "The alien ships are attempting to create a containment field," Tom reported. "They're asking all vessels to contribute power to the effort." Walker watched as beams of energy shot from the alien ships, trying to form a net around the tear. The Tenacity's sensors showed it wasn't working. The anomaly was growing faster than they could contain it. "Their containment field is failing," Rose said, now on the bridge with her portable computer. "They're using the wrong approach. Fighting against the tear will only make it worse." A new voice cut through their communications. "All ships, fall back. The containment field is collapsing." The alien vessels began retreating as their energy net disintegrated. Rose grabbed Walker's arm. "Captain, I can modify our engines in 30 minutes. My drive system might be able to help." "But," she hesitated, "the aliens will say it's too dangerous. They'll try to stop us." Walker looked at his crew, seeing the trust in their eyes. They'd followed him through countless missions in this old ship that everyone else mocked. "Do it," he said. The next half hour was the busiest the Tenacity had ever seen. While Rose and her engineering team worked frantically to modify the engines, Walker dealt with increasingly angry messages from the alien fleet. "Your primitive vessel must withdraw." The alien commander's voice boomed through the bridge. "You cannot hope to affect this situation with your outdated technology." Walker ignored them. "How's it coming, Rose?" "Almost there," she replied through the comm. "But Captain, you should know. This modification, it's going to put incredible stress on the hull. The Tenacity is old. She might not survive this." "Will it work?" There was a pause. "Yes. The math is solid. But the aliens are right about one thing. No modern ship could do this. They're too perfectly engineered, too inflexible. We need something that can bend without breaking." Walker smiled. "Like a ship held together with duct tape and baling wire." "Exactly." Rose's voice held a mix of fear and excitement. "Modifications complete. We can try it whenever you're ready." The alien ships were still retreating, their commanders sending urgent messages ordering the Tenacity to do the same. The spatial tear had grown even larger, now threatening to engulf an entire populated planet in the nearest system. Walker looked at his crew. "Anyone who wants to evacuate should do so now. What we're about to try." He didn't need to finish the thought. Not a single crew member moved. "The aliens are right about one thing," Walker said, standing up. "This ship is old. She's got patches on her patches. But age brings wisdom. And maybe what we need right now isn't the newest technology, but the oldest lessons." He touched the worn arm of his captain's chair. "Rose, start the drive." The Tenacity's engines began to hum in a way no one had ever heard before. The sound rose from a vibration. They could feel through the deck plates to a high-pitched whine that made their teeth ache. Warning lights flashed across every console as the ship's systems registered the impossible things happening in the engine room. "Hull stress increasing," Tom reported, his voice tense. "We're getting structural warnings from all sections." Through the viewport, they could see the alien ships watching from a safe distance. Walker imagined their crews expecting to see the old human vessel tear itself apart. The Tenacity moved forward, approaching the spatial tier that had defeated the most advanced ships in the galaxy. Rose's voice came from engineering, calling out readings that meant nothing to most of them, but seemed to make her increasingly excited. "It's working," she said as they drew closer to the tier. "The drive is responding exactly as the equations predicted. We're not just moving through space anymore, Captain. We're about to do something that's never been done before." Walker gripped his chair as the ship began to shake more violently. "Whatever you're going to do, Rose, do it now." The Tenacity's engines screamed as Rose activated her experimental drive system. The very fabric of space around them began to twist, and for a moment, everyone on the bridge thought they were about to die. Then something remarkable happened, something that would change the way every species in the galaxy thought about space travel forever. Time seemed to slow down on the Tenacity's bridge as Rose's experimental drive engaged. The ship's old metal groaned like it was being torn apart, but somehow held together. Through the viewport, the crew watched as reality itself appeared to bend around their vessel. "Power readings are off the scale," Tom called out, his hands dancing across his console. "The sensors can't make sense of what's happening." Walker gripped his chair tighter as the ship shuddered. "Rose, talk to me. What's happening down there?" "The drive is working exactly as designed." Rose's voice came through with excitement, despite the chaos. "We're not just moving through space anymore. We're becoming part of it. The Tenacity's old hull is actually helping us. These imperfections, all these patches and repairs, they're creating a unique energy pattern." Through the comm system, they could hear the alien ships broadcasting urgent warnings. "Human vessel, you must cease this immediately. Your actions are causing unpredictable reactions in the spatial tear." They were right about that much. The tear in space was responding to whatever the Tenacity was doing. But instead of growing larger, it was changing shape, its edges wavering like a reflection in disturbed water. "All readings indicate hull integrity at critical levels," Tom reported, his voice steady despite the warning. "We've got minutes at most before structural failure." Walker pressed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, brace for whatever comes next. Engineering, give us everything you've got." He looked at his bridge crew, seeing determination in their eyes. "Rose, it's time. Whatever you're planning to do with this drive of yours, do it now." In engineering, Rose took a deep breath. Her hands moved across her control panel, adjusting power flows that no ship had ever attempted before. The Tenacity's engines weren't just running hot anymore. They were reaching temperatures that should have melted them completely. "The aliens were wrong about one thing," she muttered to herself as she worked. "Sometimes you need an old tool to solve a new problem." With a final command, she activated the drive's main sequence. The effect was immediate and incredible. The Tenacity stopped shaking. Instead, it began to glow with an inner light that spread from the engine room through the entire ship. Every patch, every repair, every imperfection in the old vessel's hull began to shine with strange energy. On the alien ships, crews watched in disbelief as the battered human vessel transformed before their eyes. The Tenacity wasn't fighting against the spatial tear like their ships had tried to do. Instead, it was somehow matching the tear's own energy pattern, creating a harmony instead of a conflict. "Rose, Walker called out, watching as the tear began to respond to their ship's presence. "Please tell me this is what's supposed to happen." "Better than supposed to," Rose replied, her voice full of wonder. "The drive isn't just working. It's exceeding every prediction. The Tenacity's hull configuration is perfect for this. All those years of patches and repairs created exactly the pattern we needed." The alien commanders were still sending urgent messages, but their tone had changed from warning to astonishment. The Tenacity was doing something their advanced sensors couldn't even properly measure. "The tear's energy signature is changing," Tom reported, checking his readings twice to be sure. It's starting to match ours." Rose's voice came through again, more excited than ever. "That's it. We're not trying to contain the tear or force it close. We're showing it how to heal itself." She laughed. "The Tenacity isn't just a ship anymore. She's become a template for stable space." The alien vessels kept their distance, their crews watching in amazement as the old human ship continued to glow brighter. The spatial tear was responding more and more, its wild energy patterns gradually shifting to match the Tenacity's carefully controlled resonance. "Hull temperature passing all known safety limits," Tom warned. "The outer plating is starting to warp." Walker watched as pieces of the ship's hull began to flex and shift, but somehow they didn't break. The countless patches and repairs that had held the Tenacity together for so many years were now glowing like stars, creating a web of light across the ship's surface. "Just a little longer," Rose called out. "The tear is almost stabilized. The Tenacity is showing it how space is supposed to behave." On the bridge, the crew worked their stations despite the increasing heat and the strange lights that danced across their consoles. None of them had ever seen anything like this, but they trusted their ship and their engineer. "Alien vessels are reporting unprecedented energy readings," Tom said. They're asking how we're doing this." Walker smiled despite the tension. "Tell them it's an old human secret. Sometimes the best tools are the ones with a little history." The Tenacity's glow had become almost unbearable to look at. The spatial tear was now pulsing in perfect rhythm with the ship's energy field, its wild edges becoming more defined and controlled with each passing moment. "This is it," Rose shouted through the comm. "The tear is matching our pattern completely. It's learning from us, from our ship's unique energy signature. All those imperfections in our hull are teaching it how to be stable." The crew watched in awe as the massive tear in space began to shrink, its edges pulling inward as it followed the example set by their old ship. The Tenacity continued to shine, its patchwork hull creating a perfect template for how space itself should behave. "Alien vessels are backing away further," Tom reported. They're saying they've never seen anything like this in the history of space travel." Walker touched the worn arm of his captain's chair, feeling the heat of the metal through his uniform. "Rose, how much longer can the ship hold together?" "She'll hold," Rose replied with absolute confidence. "The Tenacity spent years learning how to bend without breaking. That's what makes her perfect for this." There was pride in her voice. "Those alien ships are too perfect, too rigid. Sometimes you need something a little broken to fix something that's broken." The light from the ship grew even brighter, and for a moment, the bridge crew had to shield their eyes. The spatial tear was now barely a quarter of its original size, its edges smooth and controlled where they had once been wild and dangerous. "Energy levels are starting to drop," Tom announced. "The tear, it's actually closing itself." Rose's voice came through one more time, tired but triumphant. "Of course it is. The Tenacity just taught it how to heal itself. Not bad for a ship held together with duct tape and baling wire, right?" As the crew watched, the spatial tear continued to shrink, following the pattern laid out by their old ship's unique energy field. The Tenacity had done what dozens of advanced alien vessels couldn't do, not by fighting against the tear in space, but by showing it a better way to exist. Walker looked at his bridge crew, seeing the same expression of pride on every face. Their old ship, the one that everyone had mocked, had just changed everything about how the galaxy understood space itself. And they weren't finished yet. The Tenacity hung in space, still glowing with impossible energy as the last traces of the spatial tear faded away. The ship's old hull had stopped groaning, settling into a new kind of quiet that felt different from before. On the bridge, the crew stared at their readings in amazement. "The tear is completely gone," Tom announced, checking his instruments again. "But our ship, something's changed." Walker knew what he meant. The Tenacity felt different now, as if the experience had transformed it somehow. "Rose, what's happening to our ship?" In engineering, Rose was practically dancing between her monitors, her eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, you won't believe these readings. The drive didn't just help us fix the tear. It's changed the Tenacity at a fundamental level. All those energy patterns we created, they've become permanent." Before Walker could ask what that meant, a message came through from the nearest alien vessel. "Human ship Tenacity, our sensors are detecting impossible things from your vessel. What have you done?" Walker looked at his crew, then pressed the comm button. "We just proved that sometimes the oldest tools are the best ones for the job." He switched to the internal channel. "Rose, can you come up to the bridge? I think we all need to understand what just happened." Rose arrived a few minutes later, carrying her tablet and wearing the biggest smile anyone had ever seen on her face. "It's amazing," she said, not even waiting for questions. "The Tenacity's hull, all those patches and repairs we've added over the years, they created the perfect pattern for manipulating space itself. And now that pattern has become permanent." "Explain it simply," Walker said, watching as more alien ships moved closer to observe them. Rose nodded, taking a deep breath. "Okay, you know how the Tenacity's been patched up so many times that no two sections of the hull are quite the same." When everyone nodded, she continued, "Well, it turns out that's exactly what we needed. All those different metal types, all those varying stress points, they created a kind of map for how space can bend and flex without breaking." Tom raised his hand. "But the alien ships are more advanced. Why couldn't they do this?" "Because they're too perfect," Rose said, moving to the main display to show them some readings. "Their hulls are all made from single pieces of advanced alloys. They're too uniform, too rigid. Space isn't uniform. It needs to be able to bend and flow. The Tenacity taught it how to do that because our ship already knew how." The alien messages were becoming more urgent now. Their sensors were picking up things that should have been impossible. The Tenacity wasn't just sitting in space anymore. It was somehow becoming part of space itself. "Captain," Andy called from his navigation station, "I'm getting strange readings from the engines. It's like we can go anywhere." Rose rushed over to look at his console, nodding excitedly. "Yes, that's exactly it. The drive modification didn't just help us fix the tear, it turned the Tenacity into something entirely new. We're not just moving through space anymore. She searched for the right words. "We're dancing with it." As if to prove her point, the ship's glow pulsed gently. And for a moment, everyone on the bridge felt like they were everywhere and nowhere at once. The sensation passed quickly, but it left them all with a strange certainty that their ship had somehow become more than just a vessel. "More alien ships approaching," Tom reported. "They're asking permission to scan us more closely. And there's a message from the Galactic Council. They're demanding an explanation." Walker smiled. "Tell them we'll be happy to explain everything, right after we test what this old ship can really do now." He turned to Rose. "What exactly can we do?" Rose's eyes sparkled. "The real question is, what can't we do? The Tenacity isn't just traveling through space anymore. She's working with it. Remember how the aliens' containment field failed because they were fighting against the tear? We succeeded because we worked with it instead. And now," she gestured at the ship around them, "now the Tenacity can do that all the time." "Show me," Walker said. Rose moved to Andy's station, making some quick adjustments. "See that star? The one that would take us 3 days to reach at our best speed." When Walker nodded, She smiled. Watch this. The Tenacity's glow brightened slightly, and suddenly the star was right in front of them. There was no sensation of movement, no stress on the hull. They were simply there. How? Tom started to ask, but couldn't finish. We didn't move through space, Rose explained, her voice full of wonder. We moved with it. All those imperfections in our hull, all those patches and repairs, they're not just holding us together anymore. They're helping us talk to space itself, showing it how to bend and flex safely. The alien ships were frantically trying to follow them now, their advanced engines pushing them as fast as they could go. But the Tenacity was doing something they couldn't understand, let alone copy. Their sensors can't make sense of what we're doing, Tom said, reading the incoming messages. They're saying it's impossible, that we're breaking every known law of physics. Not breaking, Rose corrected. Rewriting. The Tenacity showed space a new way to behave during the crisis, and now space is returning the favor. We're not fighting against the rules anymore. We're working with them in a way no one ever thought to try. Walker watched as his old, patched-up ship continued to glow with its new energy. The same vessel that aliens had mocked just days ago was now doing things their most advanced ships couldn't even understand. More messages from the Galactic Council, Tom reported. They're requesting that we share this technology. Walker looked at Rose, who shook her head. We can't, she said. At least, not in the way they want. This isn't about advanced technology. It's about understanding that sometimes the flaws and patches are exactly what you need. The Tenacity can do this because she's imperfect, because she's had to learn how to adapt and change. You can't build that into a new ship. The bridge crew fell silent, letting that sink in. Their old damaged ship had turned its greatest weaknesses into something extraordinary. Every patch, every repair, every compromise they'd made to keep flying had led to this moment. Sir, Andy said from his station, where should we go now? We can go anywhere. Walker sat in his captain's chair, feeling the worn cushions that had supported him through countless missions. First, we show the Galactic Council exactly what humanity can do with an old ship and some creative thinking. Then, he smiled. Then we go everywhere. The Tenacity's glow pulsed one more time, and the ship slipped through space in a way that would change exploration forever. Behind them, the alien vessels could only watch as the oldest human ship in service rewrote everything they thought they knew about the universe. 1 month after the spatial tear incident, the Tenacity floated near the Galactic Council station once again. This time, no one was laughing at its patched hull or outdated appearance. The ship's gentle glow had become famous across the galaxy, a sign of humanity's unexpected breakthrough in space travel. Inside the main council chamber, Walker stood with Rose as they faced the largest gathering of alien scientists ever assembled. The room was packed with representatives from every spacefaring race, all eager to understand how an old human ship had changed everything they thought they knew about space travel. Let me be clear, first speaker Bright Crystal said, their crystalline form shimmering with barely contained excitement. You're saying that the very flaws we mocked in your vessel were the key to this discovery. Rose stepped forward, no longer intimidated by the alien leaders. They weren't flaws. They were features we didn't understand yet. The Tenacity's hull, with all its patches and repairs, created a pattern that matched the natural way space wants to behave. We just had to learn to listen to it. An alien scientist raised a limb. But our scans show your ship's energy signature is impossible to replicate. We've tried with our most advanced vessels. Of course it's impossible to replicate, Rose said with a smile. You can't manufacture history. The Tenacity's pattern came from years of repairs, from learning to bend without breaking. Each patch, each repair, each modification added something unique. It's like, she thought for a moment, it's like trying to copy an old tree. You can't fake the way it's grown and adapted over time. Walker watched as the alien leaders exchanged glances. He knew what they were thinking. Their perfect ships, with their flawless hulls and advanced technology, couldn't do what his old, patched-up vessel could do. Back on the Tenacity's bridge, Tom received an urgent message. "Captain, there's a situation in the Carina sector. A colony ship is in trouble. Engine failure near a gravity well." "How long would it take the nearest help to reach them?" Walker asked. "Nearest ship is 3 days away at maximum speed," Tom replied. Walker smiled. "Tell them we'll be there in about 10 seconds. He pressed the comm button. "Rose, time to show them what the old girl can do." In front of the assembled alien leaders, a massive view screen showed the Tenacity's response. The ship's glow brightened slightly, and then it simply wasn't there anymore. A moment later, they watched as it appeared next to the struggling colony ship, its strange energy field already extending to stabilize the larger vessel. "Impossible," one of the alien scientists whispered. "The energy required for such movement." "That's what we kept getting wrong," Rose explained. "We all thought space travel was about having enough energy to force our way through space. But the Tenacity showed us it's about working with space, understanding how it wants to flow and move naturally." The rescue took less than an hour. The Tenacity guided the colony ship to safety, its modified hull somehow helping the larger vessel move through space more easily. When they returned to the council station, the alien leaders had even more questions. "We've studied the records of the spatial tear incident," another scientist said. "Your ship didn't just seal the tear, it taught space itself how to heal. How is this possible?" Rose walked to the main display, bringing up an image of the Tenacity's hull pattern. "Look at these repair points," she said, highlighting various patches. "Each one is slightly different, created at different times with different materials. Together, they form a pattern that's almost exactly like the natural fabric of space. When we activated my drive system, the Tenacity didn't just move through space. It reminded space how it was supposed to work." "And now," Bright Crystal asked, "what else can your vessel do?" Walker stepped forward. "We're still learning. Every day, we discover new things. The Tenacity isn't just a ship anymore. She's become a key to understanding space itself. And the more we learn, the more we realize how little we really knew before." In the following weeks, the Tenacity's crew began teaching others what they'd learned. They couldn't share the exact technology. It wasn't something that could be copied or manufactured. But they could share the principles, the understanding that sometimes the most powerful tools were the ones that had grown and adapted over time. "It's like the ship has become alive," Rose told a group of eager students from various species. "Not alive like we are, but alive like space is alive. It flows, it adapts, it learns." The Tenacity learned how to do that through years of patches and repairs, and now she's teaching us. The alien ships started changing too. Instead of trying to build perfect vessels, they began to understand the value of adaptation and change. Some even started intentionally modifying their hulls, trying to create patterns that could work with space rather than against it. One evening, as the Tenacity orbited Earth, Walker found Rose in engineering, working on her equations as usual. "The aliens are still trying to copy us," he said. Rose nodded without looking up. "They'll figure it out eventually. Not by copying us, but by learning the same lesson we did. That perfection isn't always the answer. Sometimes you need something a little broken to understand how to fix things." The ship's glow pulsed gently, as if agreeing with her words. They'd learned that the glow changed color slightly based on nearby space conditions, another way the Tenacity communicated with them about the universe around them. "New message from Fleet Command." Tom's voice came through the comm. "They're asking if we're ready to start training crews on other old ships. Apparently, there's a waiting list of volunteers now." Walker laughed. The same ships that had been scheduled for retirement were now the most valuable vessels in the fleet. Every dent, every patch, every repair could be the key to understanding space in a new way. "Tell them we're ready," he said, "but remind them, we can teach the principles, but each ship will have to find its own way, just like the Tenacity did." As if in response, the ship's glow brightened slightly, and through the viewport, they could see the stars seeming to dance. The tenacity wasn't just showing them new ways to travel through space. It was showing them new ways to see the universe itself. In the Galactic Council records, they marked this as the beginning of a new age of space exploration. But they didn't name it after the advanced technology or the breakthrough physics. They called it the Tenacity Era, after an old human ship that taught them all that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the ability to bend without breaking, to learn from every patch and repair, and to turn supposed flaws into strengths that could change everything. The Tenacity continued its missions, no longer the laughingstock of the fleet, but instead its most celebrated ship. And if sometimes the crew missed the days when they were just the old ship that nobody expected much from, they only had to look at the stars ahead of them, full of endless possibilities that only they could explore. After all, they had something no other ship would ever have. They had history, written in every patch and repair, teaching them new ways to dance with space itself. Not bad for a ship held together with duct tape and baling wire.